We've been making memes about how OpenAI is not really open for a long time now, and it's true. OpenAI is one of the major providers of models that doesn't open source their models, so you can't run them yourself. They've open sourced a lot of info about how the models work. They've been great about documenting their research, but OpenAI itself has been providing closed source software through their services for quite a while. That all said, they still were a nonprofit. The actual company structure was that with a board that was specifically dedicated to bettering humanity as a nonprofit charitable org. That just changed, and I really didn't think it would happen. It's an unbelievable shift, especially after all the drama last year that Prime and I covered with like 20 videos. It's come to an end, and here's the results. I didn't think this was actually going to happen. Holy shit. I saw earlier today that the CTO, Mira, was leaving, but I didn't realize it was this big. Oh God. I think it's only fair if Sam Altman's going to make more money, that I am too. So let's hear from our sponsor real quick.
What's all that shit on your desk? Remember how I mentioned we were working on that new app? Oh yeah, I remember. The iPhone app, right? Yeah, it was supposed to be, but our competition just shipped the Android app, and now we're in catch-up mode. And sorry, I'm getting a call. Yeah? You want the app on Windows as well? Okay. Man, that sucks. Doesn't your app have to support a bunch of platforms too? How are you so calm? Oh, we just worked with Infinite Red. They built the whole app for us. What? Yeah, they're industry leaders in React Native. They made it so anyone at our company can contribute to the code base. Like all of the React web devs, they're shipping features on iOS, Android, and Windows with just one code base. Are you not surprised? They work with Microsoft all the time. They know what they're doing. What about Mac? Mac? That was fast. So they can have it by the end of the day. That's pretty cool. What? Thank you, Infinite Red, for sponsoring today's video. Check them out at infinite.red. Make sure you tell them Theo sent you.
ChatGPT maker OpenAI is working on a plan to restructure its core business into a for-profit benefit corporation that will no longer be controlled by its nonprofit board. People familiar with the matter told Reuters. In a move that will make the company more attractive to investors. The way that OpenAI handles investors right now is interesting. Most companies, investors buy a percentage with the hopes of being able to sell that percentage at some point in the future. OpenAI had an interesting rule where profits on an investment were capped. They had a hard cap, I think it was 10x. So if you invested $1 million and you could sell it for 10 million, you couldn't make more than 10 million on that sale. So this is a huge change because now investors can invest in a much more traditional way without these weird caps and whatnot on the investments. Huge shift. Very strange and unexpected. The OpenAI nonprofit will continue to exist and own a minority stake in the for-profit company. The move could also have implications for how the company manages AI risks in a new governance structure. That's the main concern. A big part of why OpenAI was formed in the first place was to make sure that AI development and advancement wasn't a thing that like two big companies made a bunch of money off of and didn't care to bother with the safety side. It was a combination of AI should benefit all and the best AI should be safe. And those two things were huge core parts of why OpenAI was formed in the first place. And then they got so far ahead of everyone else so early that it was hard for them to not make money. And now they're in the weird position of having a CEO that knows how to make money at businesses and the original nonprofit board not liking the direction of the company, all the drama that happened, and now this. It's weird for a nonprofit to become the industry lead in something. And it makes sense they're no longer a nonprofit. But God, this is a weird scenario. Also of note is that Sam Altman, for the first time, now has equity in OpenAI. Crazy enough, Sam Altman didn't own any part of OpenAI before. So if they did really well or poorly, he might make a bit more money, but that was about it. OpenAI was not a company he owned stock in versus like me, I own a huge portion, majority portion of the things that we built with Ping Labs. So upload thing, marker thing, pick thing, all those things as part of Ping, I own over half of. He owned 0. Now he owns quite a bit more. In fact, the amount he owns could be worth up to $150 billion after the restructuring, as it's also trying to remove the cap on returns for investors, which I mentioned before. There's that weird cap where you can only make a certain multiplier on top. We remain focused on building AI that benefits everyone. We're working with our board to ensure that we're best positioned to succeed in our mission. The nonprofit is core to our mission and it will continue to exist. Because the structure right now, before these changes go in place, for those who haven't kept up with all of this, is the OpenAI board has stayed a fully nonprofit entity, and the OpenAI company where all the engineers work and all the building happens, that is a company that reports to the board underneath it. So the board is the ones who say what goes. They're the actual owners and decision makers. They have all the voting shares of the OpenAI corporation, but the OpenAI corporation that can make money, that does all the work, that does all these things, operates separately. And that separation was starting to cause tension between the groups. And now they are separating entirely. It actually seems like it flipped, where the corporation's on top now and the board reports to them as like a voter, but they don't make the decisions anymore. The details of the proposed corporate structure, first reported by Reuters, highlight significant governance changes happening behind the scenes at one of the most important AI companies. They even call out the Mira leaving thing that I mentioned before. The plan is still being hashed out with lawyers and shareholders, and the timeline for completing the restructure remains uncertain. The restructuring also comes amid a series of leadership changes at the startup. OpenAI's longtime chief technology officer, Mira, abruptly announced her departure from the company on Wednesday. Greg Brockman, OpenAI's president, has also been on leave. Founded in 2015 as a nonprofit AI research organization, OpenAI added the for-profit OpenAI LP entity in 2019 as a subsidiary of its nonprofit, securing capital from Microsoft to fund its research. As I mentioned, the OpenAI profitable part was a subsidiary of the nonprofit. The company captured global attention with the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022, which was a generative AI app that spit out human-like responses to text queries, which became one of the fastest-growing applications in history with over 200 million weekly active users, igniting a global race to invest in AI. Along with ChatGPT's success, OpenAI's valuation has skyrocketed from $14 billion in 2021 to $150 billion in the new convertible debt round under discussion, which is attracting investors such as Thrive Capital and Apple. The company's unusual structure, which gives full control of the for-profit subsidiary to the OpenAI nonprofit, was originally set to ensure the mission of creating safe AGI that is broadly beneficial, referring to artificial general intelligence that is at or exceeding human intelligence. As I mentioned before, the goal of OpenAI was to create safe artificial general intelligence that was available for anyone to use, so it wasn't just Microsoft, Apple, and Facebook that had it and no one else could. The structure came into focus last November during one of the biggest boardroom dramas in Silicon Valley. Members of the nonprofit board ousted Altman over a breakdown in communication and a loss of trust. He was reinstated after 5 days with overwhelming support from employees and investors. What a crazy 5 days that was. I had a friend visiting, and I had to spend the entire time in my room filming and editing videos about the OpenAI drama. I really hope that's not about to start again. Don't make me do this again, guys. Please. Please. Since then, OpenAI's board has been refreshed with more tech executives, chaired by Brett Taylor, former Salesforce co-CEO, who now runs his own AI startup. Any corporate changes need approval from its 9-person nonprofit board. The removal of nonprofit control could make OpenAI operate more like a typical startup, a move generally welcomed by its investors who have poured billions into the company. However, it could also raise concerns from the AI safety community about whether the lab still has enough governance to hold itself accountable in its pursuit of AGI, as it has dissolved the super alignment team that focused on the long-term risks of AI earlier this year. I will say, for the conspiracy theorists and the people who are really terrified of AI and AI safety stuff, you have quite the bullet list to be scared about right now. Like, let's just go through. First, we have OpenAI formed to make safe AGI for all. The reason it was formed is because there was concern from these really smart scientist folks, including people like Altman, Elon Musk, and many more, that doing AI safely was not a guarantee, and that lots of people developing AI stuff could do it in a way that would destroy humanity. And even if they didn't, but it was only made by a couple companies, then it wouldn't benefit all of humanity, just the bottom lines of those few companies. Because of those concerns, they formed OpenAI to fight those concerns. The concerns being two parts. The two major concerns were, one, AI made for profit might not be safe enough, and the safety could potentially destroy humanity. If people are just trying to make money, they might leave safety aside and then get destroyed. Point two is that powerful AI should not be restricted to a small number of rich companies. Because if the only people in the world that have AI are like 2 to 3 big businesses, that's a massive unfair advantage for them that could destroy the economy. Imagine if only 3 companies could make websites. Terrifying. So the two things that OpenAI was formed to prevent were unsafe AI and a small number of companies owning the best AI. These are the two reasons OpenAI was formed. So let's go down the rabbit hole here. OpenAI makes the LP for profit section to make development faster. For profit part takes investments from the very companies they were scared of. And here's where I think the conspiracy theorists are going to start feeling things, because the original goal of forming OpenAI to prevent these things from happening started to feel like it was being lost with the change of the for-profit section. But that was okay because they still reported to the nonprofit. So anybody saying like, oh, OpenAI is now going to be the problem they were built to prevent, well, the OpenAI nonprofit board is still the one in control. So is it that big a deal? Yeah, it is. But it wasn't that bad at the time. But then that for-profit section started to take huge investments from companies like Microsoft. Wait, what about that second part? Is Microsoft going to get the thing that we didn't want them to get? Well, once we started releasing the models, OpenAI starts releasing models with no way to run them yourself. And that was a big deal because, as we've memed many a time, OpenAI has closed models. You cannot use their models the way you want to. You have to use them via an API on their infrastructure. Compared to a lot of open models like Llama from Meta or all the crazy things Mistral is doing, there's a lot of open model options that you have access to. If you want to run a model on your own hardware, maybe embedded on a device, stuff like that, OpenAI, nope, they do not allow that. Which means the other goal of powerful AI should not be restricted to a small number of rich companies. We went from believing that to not very quick here, almost alarmingly so. On the other hand, to lightly defend them, they did open source all of their research. They published a lot of papers and a lot of theories in the concept of an LLM, which is a huge part of how these other open source models could be created. They followed in the footsteps of the work OpenAI did make public. So they did advance the ecosystem and they allowed for other models to exist, but their own model, their own best of the best, is not something others have access to, which hurts point two a lot. But at least the nonprofit still runs things, right? At least they'll keep it safe, right? Well, nonprofit board gets concerned about safety and incentives. Sam doesn't respond. So board fires Sam. Because at this point in time, the board was still in control, and the board was still people who were aligned with these two goals. And this is the point of the board. This is the board doing its job. If this is where it ended, there'd be no conspiracy because they did their job. They kept AI at OpenAI safe and accessible to all instead of letting the incentives of profit drive them in a way that makes these two things problems. But then outrage brings Sam back. OG board is largely fired. So the board didn't get to do its job. The board didn't get to have its ultimate control where they decided, hey, if the things are going in a direction that we feel is unsafe or potentially problematic, we're going to step in. They can't. And a large part of why they were forced out as the board was the investors at places like Microsoft putting their weight behind it. So the whole point of keeping rich companies and money out of the best of AI has now flipped. And that same money they were concerned about could be argued to be how the OpenAI board collapsed, which is insane. But at the very least, they promised they would continue to maintain the existing goals. But they promised the goals would not change. So again, the goals are safety and everyone has access. We haven't touched too much on the safety, but now we have to, because the super alignment team gets disbanded. This was the team at OpenAI that's whole thing was just keeping the models in the AI in alignment with what humans needed. So their job was just everything they had to do to keep AI safe and from going haywire and killing all of humans. And that team has been disbanded. Ilya quits as well. Ilya was the Russian lunatic, super smart genius who invented a lot of the techniques that became modern AI, and is also really into the security and safety side of AI. He was heavily involved with the super alignment team. I think he actually ran it. And he was also originally on the board before he got removed because he was one of the ones pushing to get Sam removed. So now it looks like that safety goal is starting to crumble too. But to go back to the goal two, the profit goal, now the super alignment team is disbanded. Oh, also I should mention here that Microsoft now has a board seat. Ilya quits, super alignment team gets disbanded, and now, much later, OpenAI is moving the nonprofit to a minority shareholder position. So through this absurd process, we went from OpenAI being formed to maintain these two goals to OpenAI being traditional for-profit business that has a lot of financial incentives to fuck up these two goals. So despite the initial structure of the fully open company with the nonprofit board, so we've managed to get into the position everybody was concerned about, where the company with the best AI is driven by profit and might not have the right incentives around safety and is making things that are restricted to just the best companies in the world. So I think it's fair to say the original two goals OpenAI was founded on might not be as deep in the blood of OpenAI anymore, especially goal 2 here. But we need to be keeping our eyes out for goal 1. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I haven't seen anything convincing enough to have me scared about the future of AI tools trying to kill humans. But if you're one of the people that is an extremist on that, here you go. You have your order of events to feed your conspiracy brain, and I fully understand. And now that they have a much stronger for-profit drive, safety is one of those things that gets left behind when you're driving profit pretty often. So this might be bad. Back to the article. It's unclear how much equity Altman will receive. Altman, already a billionaire from his multiple startup investments, has previously stated that he chose not to take an equity stake in the company because the board needed a majority of disinterested directors with no stake in the company. He's also said he has enough money and is doing it because he loves the work. The new structure of OpenAI would resemble that of its major rival Anthropic, as well as Elon's xAI, which are registered as benefit corporations, a form of for-profit that aims to promote social responsibility and sustainability in addition to making profits. We'll see how that goes. And with everything going as fast as it does, Sam has just tweeted once again, literally minutes ago, we need to cover this. Oh boy. This seems to be a comment more on Mira leaving, but this will certainly give us more context on everything going on. Mira has been instrumental to OpenAI's progress and growth for the last 6.5 years. She has been a hugely significant factor in our development from an unknown research lab to an important company. When Mira informed me this morning that she was leaving, I was saddened, but of course I support her decision. For the past years, she's been building out a strong bench of leaders that will continue our progress. I also want to share that Bob and Barrett have decided to depart OpenAI. Mira, Bob, and Barrett made these decisions independently of each other and amicably, but the timing of Mira's decision was such that it made sense to now do all of this at once, so that we can work together for a smooth handover to the next generation of leadership. I am extremely grateful to all of them for their contributions. Being a leader at OpenAI is all-consuming. On one hand, it's a privilege to build AGI and be the fastest-growing company that gets to put our advanced research in the hands of hundreds of millions of people. On the other hand, it's relentless to lead a team through it. They've gone above and beyond the call of duty for the company. Mark's going to be our new SVP of Research and will now lead the research org in partnership with Jacob as Chief Scientist. This has been our long-term succession plan for Bob someday, although it's happening sooner than we thought. I couldn't be more excited that Mark is stepping into the role. Mark obviously has deep technical expertise, but he's also learned how to be a leader and manager in a very impressive way over the past few years. Josh is going to take on a new role as head of mission alignment, working across the company to ensure we get all pieces and culture right to be in a place to succeed at the mission. Kevin and Sri will continue to lead the applied team. Matt Knight will be our Chief Information Security Officer, having already served in this capacity for a long time. It's been our plan for quite some time. Mark, Jacob, Kevin, Sri, Matt, and Josh will all report to me being Sam. I have, over the past year or so, spent most of my time in the non-technical parts of our organization. I'm now looking forward to spending most of my time on the technical and product parts of the company. Very interesting that he has been stuck doing non-tech stuff, and this shift is so he can go back in the weeds again. Leadership changes are a natural part of companies, especially companies that grow so quickly and are so demanding. I obviously won't pretend it's natural for this one to be so abrupt, but we're not a normal company. I think the reasons Mira explained to me, there's never a good time, anything not abrupt would have leaked, she wanted to do this while OpenAI was in an upswing. All of these things made sense for it to be now. We can both talk about this more tomorrow during All Hands. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication. Sam. Kinda nuts that they're doing a full restructuring internally. And definitely lends credence to the leak info we just read from Reuters, because it seems like they're ready to fundamentally change how OpenAI works and go all in on startup mode. Very, very interesting. I have concerns, but yeah, we'll see where this one ends up. I'm using Claude right now anyways, but I'm curious what y'all think. Do you like the OpenAI drama? Are you tired of me covering this? And until next time, peace, nerds.